Okay. Welcome, 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 everyone. We are so excited today because we have Frank Manzula here. Manzula, who, what an incredible background he has. Not the one that you're looking at on our show, but he and his partner built the zip line at Caesars in Las Vegas. And ran that for several years, I guess. And then Caesars bought them out and now they're out playing in, a world I am so excited about, the RV world. So Frank's going to talk to us about RVing and how you can make a lot of money at it, especially if you join him as a partner, Tony. So here we go. Take it away, Frank. Tell us what you'd like us to know. And
thank you so much, Peggy, for the opportunity and for the introduction. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Peggy said, my partner and I, we've been doing about 11, 12 years now, and his background, he has 30 plus years of hotel management experience. So he's run some of the biggest hotels on the Las Vegas Strip and open hotels throughout the country. So the real concept that we're talking about is how can we bring that elevated experience, that more of a concierge type experience, to the RV industry, which has historically been a little like a redheaded stepchild. It's just been kind of looked down upon. But man, oh man, when you see those $100,000 rigs roll down the streets, you know there's a market out there, and we're here to address that. So just a little background myself. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a spreadsheet guy, grind the numbers, cross the T's, dot the I's. I'm the one in school who wanted to know why, and I'm upsetting the rest of the class. I got to know why. I have to understand it. If I can't understand that why, then it was like stuck in my brain and I couldn't get to the next level. But that's the way my mind works, because I want to understand why. I want to understand something, because if I can make it better, if I can engineer it, reverse engineer it, that's what is inside me to do. It's just how I work. So I've been in the real estate industry. I got in 20 years ago, just about, with some small multis and small commercial back in Wisconsin, and enjoyed that. And then in 2006, 2007, I sold off what I had to move to Las Vegas right before everything melted down. It was a blessing, but also maybe gun shy, unfortunately. And so I didn't jump into the market like I should have here in 2010, 2011. Then a whole bunch of life happened, got married, 3 kids, the whole nine. So then we jumped in with the zip line deal, which I could go on just for an hour just about that deal. Was an engineering feat, and what a fun thing that was to do. But it was a $22 million project on the Las Vegas Strip. It's pretty neat when you go down there, and we knew what day they're going to be moving in our 225-ton crane, and we got to block off 4 of the 6 lanes of the Las Vegas Strip, and we were on the news for causing traffic tie-ups, and like, oh, this is so fun. This is so cool. We love it. But that experiential real estate play was just with us for so long. So then going into, after that project, we were looking at doing some other types of kid-friendly developments, things like that. And then COVID happened. We had a couple projects in the pipeline that we lost funding for due to COVID. And so we came out of this. Fast forward how I got into the RV world. Actually, I'll pull it up on my screen here. Was got me at the end of my production here. Was back in, let's see, 2 years ago, Thanksgiving, I was on my way where my wife's mother and father-in-law live down in Arizona, and we usually go down there for Thanksgiving. And they had just bought a new trailer, and they said, we don't have any room at the inn. We have a lot of relatives in from out of town. Would you mind if we parked our trailer, which they just bought a brand new camping trailer 2 months prior? Will you mind if we parked at the RV park down the road from us? We'll set you up and you guys could stay there. And we're like, no, cool. I'd never been in an RV park. I'd never stepped foot in an RV or spent the night there. We got there, it was 46 degrees. I had to learn how to hook up the propane tank to it and how to thaw out the water and all that good stuff. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and I get out the front door and I look at this. I'm just surrounded by RVs. And I'm like, this is the middle of nowhere. We're like in a cornfield here, it felt like. And I'm looking around, and I understand the business enough to know that this is just a big vacant lot with utilities coming up through the ground. So then I went and I asked my mother-in-law, I said, just curious, what did you spend for us to stay the night at the RV park? She said, oh, it wasn't bad. I think it was $47 a night. And light bulb moment, it went off. And I said, for not a lot of money, you can build one of these things and the yield is going to be out the door. Unbelievable. And that's the journey that we've been on since, looking at these types of projects. In the meantime, what's happened is we just are hitting this at the stride in the RV world. Some of the big trends prior to COVID, up to 2001 to 2021, there was an increase of 62% in the RV ownership throughout the United States. A lot of this was frankly from retiring baby boomers that took to the roads and were buying these and had the capital to buy them. There's currently over 11 million RVs in the US. That's against about 130 million households in the US. So that means 9% of households, or 1 out of 11 households, owns an RV, which is just a staggering number to me. And the backlog at Winnebago right now is $5 billion against $3.6 billion in sales last year. So they have over a 1-year backlog at Winnebago right now. Now, a lot of that was because of COVID, and that's actually tapered off a bit. They're going to eclipse their 2021 sales were the biggest in industry ever. And 2022 is going to be down about 9%, but it's still a massive number of inventory going out there on the roads. Some of those trends continued. I had no idea it was a $26 billion marketplace. And then with the increase of advanced deposits and campgrounds expecting more campers this year, what it means is that, frankly, there's more RVs going on the road than there are spots for them to go. And that's both short-term and long-term storage, people that want to live in them year-round, getting into national parks are big RV centers, and they just don't have the room for them. Some of those drivers, the baby boomers that said took to the roads, got out there and really established the market over the last 20 years. But then a new class emerged. When we talked about what happened with the meltdown in the mid 2000s, you think about a millennial and who's maybe late 20s, early 30s. Well, how old were they back then? They were 15, 16, 18, whatever years old. And they lived through being in a household where their parents lost their home. And when I moved out to Las Vegas in 2008, by 2009, 10, I could count on one hand the number of people that I knew that owned their home, that had lived there through the last couple of years. So many homes were, dropping the keys off, foreclosures, bankruptcies, and the millennials remember this because they grew up around it. And there's this whole new thing out there called RVs, and somebody that has maybe $100,000 to spend on a home, what kind of home can you get for $100,000? But for $100,000, you can get a beautiful, amazing rig and spend your time, whatever national park, city, wherever you want to go. If you want to go to the beach, you want to go to the mountains, it's out there. And COVID really helped us because it enabled them to work from anywhere, which now you have over 1 million full-time explorers, people that live in their RVs year round and work from there. Many people are educating their kids from their RVs. And, if I want to teach my kids about the outdoors and nature, I want to go there. Or if I want to teach them about history, I'll take them to Washington, D.C. We have those options now. It's amazing. The other big trend that has come on the scene in the last several years that makes this just that much more fun of a niche are the park-owned rentals. So we're seeing park model cabins, which are beautiful homes with everything that's out there, tiny homes and that on HGTV and all those. You have some really neat concepts out there, and people love these. And frankly, they discovered this glamping and yurts, which is glamping is a glamour camping. If you think of those safari tents, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they set these beautiful palatial tents, that's what's going on out there. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money. Maybe for $20,000 you can set one of these up, and it's something that'll rent for $150, $200 a night. Same thing, those park model cabins, they're anywhere from $50 to $100,000. That will rent anywhere from $100 to $300 a night. And then finally, the simplest way to add inventory, if somebody doesn't have, so these are all solutions for people that don't have RVs that want to travel to these awesome spots. Park-owned trailers for $20,000 to $30,000. I could buy a nice 2-bedroom trailer, park it, and then just rent that out by the night. And that's something that again might rent for $100 to $150 a night on a $20,000 to $30,000 investment. So the neat thing about RV world is that there's so many ways that you can slice and dice this thing, and you can look at your markets and try to understand what's going on. And the beautiful thing is that when you enter a market, all the research is out there. The market research is out there. I can look at all my closest competitors and look at all the TripAdvisor and all the Campendium and all the Dirt and all that. There's different RV specific sites out there for ranking and reviewing. And I can find out, wow, there's really a need for dog parks in this particular area. Nobody has that solution there. Or there's nothing in this area that's kid friendly and people want something that's kid friendly. So much research is just out there for free for the taking so that you don't have to guess. You can start dialing some of this in. Supply and demand is what it's all about. The demand, we talked about the market drivers. Affordable housing is really putting a crunch on it. And the availability, how I see some of this going in the long term is that you may think of an RV park as someplace where people go on vacation. They come in for a weekend, a week, 2 weeks. But many of these are actually more like a mobile home park where people are actually staying there and living in them, building decks around them and having a permanent or semi-permanent type of scenario. So you could have a situation where somebody gets to the point where they're just tired of driving it. They've owned it for 10 years. They go and they find a nice spot that's 2 hours from home by a lake. And that's their lake home. They go and they park it there and they leave it there and they pay rent year round. And in the summers, they come up for the weekends and that's just their little lake home. And they could do it much cheaper than buying a piece of property, but that's the solution, but it's affordable. The demand from the new hospitality products means that people that aren't, I don't want to deal with hookups. I don't want to empty out a septic tank. I don't want to deal with that stuff. Great. We have new hospitality products so that you can still come and enjoy the outdoors with us. And then there's even more demand from RV sharing technologies. So there's companies out there that are like Uber for RVs. So if you go and you buy an RV and it's sitting in your side yard, but it's there and it's not making money, now you can go to one of these platforms and actually, just like an Airbnb, you can actually put that out there on the road and it's insured, it's taken care of, it's backed by the companies that do that. But that's just creating more demand. It's putting more people in the driver's seat. On the supply side, opposite story. There's not enough new parks that are being built. So last year, the report I heard at the beginning of the year was that we needed 50,000 new RV spots in the US, and there was 15,000 that were added. So about a third of what we needed was added. Additionally, land prices are making RV parks unprofitable. There's some areas that they're just not putting the zoning in for them. It doesn't make sense, because if I have a piece of land that's $400,000, it may make sense for me to pull a multifamily on that, but it doesn't make sense because I need to be buying these for $10, $20, $30,000 an acre or less to make sense to put an RV park on it. So it's the increase in land prices near major cities has really put a crunch on the supply. Additionally, you have highest and best use coming in place and are actually getting rid of RV parks. I just have a line on the largest one here in Las Vegas. And it's most centrally located, and it's by far the largest one. And the owner is now asking a incredible amount for the land, because he's been there 30 years. Good for him. He warehoused the land on the outskirts of Las Vegas. Well, now it grew up around it. And now that land is worth millions of dollars an acre. And he may have to wait a little while, but he'll get a good price for it. But that means that those are going away. Those spots are going away and not coming back. And then finally, the municipalities are not approving parks. So even if I had a piece of land, the municipalities that generate tax dollars from property taxes, would they rather have a $10 million development on it or a $1 million development on it? They want the larger development on it. So that means that they're not even approving these in a lot of cases. That's a problem in I know locally here in Phoenix and in Las Vegas. We haven't had a new RV spot built here in over 10 years. In the meantime, the city's almost doubled in size. So when you break these numbers down, you say, okay, there's 500,000 new RVs that are being built this year against 11.5 million existing. So that's about almost a 5% increase in the number of RVs out there on the road. And yes, some will retire, but just to get a feel here. On the other side, there were less than 60 new RV parks built in 2021. I know there's a lot on the schedule, a lot being planned, but it is a difficult market to break into because of the zoning restrictions. That does spill opportunity in some other areas, though. And this is depending on how you slice it, there's and categorize, there's somewhere around 10 to 14,000 RV parks in the US. So, the demand is just keeps outpacing the supply, and there's no end to that in sight. So looking at this as Peggy said, okay, but how do we make money at this? It is a fun niche. It is really fun. The market's growing. It's a neat time because you also have those retiring baby boomers that are getting into their 70s now. And that means that deals are available. And a lot of these folks, they bought that land for next to nothing 30 years ago, and they generate a good income on it. But they haven't really kept it upgraded. They haven't marketed it properly. So there's a lot of room for improvements. But if you can find something that's cash flowing today, that has the potential to grow it through marketing, through expansion, through adding new markets, through repairing the property, through all sorts of different ways to bring these up to market or above market grade, there's a lot of money there to be made. The flexibility of the operations and creativity. We have one park we're looking at adding golf cart rentals, which will rent for about $60 or $70 a day. Just all these fun little things, video games and arcades and laundry, coin-op laundry, and convenient or small convenience stores, camp stores. There's all sorts of ways to add on all sorts of revenue streams that are high margin that only add to the value of the business. Next, the market's not dominated. It's still pretty wide open. And once you get into the larger parks in the $15-20 million and up range, those at a 6 cap, 6.5 cap, they go on the market and they are sold within 2 to 4 weeks. The big boys are picking those up, and they're picking them up fast. But that's not the market that we play in. We're looking at that $5 million and under type of market, and that is still wide open. The other good thing is that, those flexible owners, they may be more open to sell our carries, either the whole thing or a portion of the property, different terms. The property that we have under contract right now is in Arizona, and it's under contract for $900,000. And I just looked back at my notes, and the first meeting said, absolutely will not carry paper on this. And by the time it was all said and done, as I've heard on this call before, in a negotiation, one person gets their price, the other person gets their terms. Well, we gave them full asking price because it was $200,000 or $300,000 below market value for the property as is. So we gave him his price, but it was on our terms. We were able to get that 10% carryback, which makes our financing world that much better. And it puts more money in our pocket because that's less equity that we have to buy. Again, the creativity in these deals, it's amazing what you can do once you get into them. It's just endless. It's just endless. Some of the things that the out there ideas that I've seen are so much fun. And final thing on the pro side is at tax time, the depreciation of these. I'll keep going back to compare to multifamily because a lot of people know that as a base point. But a multifamily property is going to depreciate over 27 and a half years. The bulk of that property is in the building, and people say, well, how are you going to depreciate an RV park when it's mostly land? You don't have a lot of buildings. You don't have a lot of improvements. Well, most of the investment, once you get past a piece of land, is in the ground. It's in the utilities. It's in the sewer system. It's in electrical upgrades, things like that. But those can be depreciated on a faster schedule. A lot of those can be depreciated at 15 years. And in some cases, some piece of equipment can be depreciated at, I believe, don't quote me on this, but 5 to 7 years. And there's even for properties that close in 2022, they're still under the CARES Act from COVID, even quicker depreciation than that available. So a lot of folks use this they're looking to RV parks as a depreciation model. So they may have a portfolio of, say, 5 multifamilies, and they want to add 1 or 2 RV parks to that because they get the faster depreciation, which then helps them out at tax time versus the slower depreciation on those other assets. Some of the cons, it's a business. It is a business. It's not passive. And there's few property management companies out there that actually operate in this space, and they're very expensive, frankly. I have not been able to put together the spreadsheet where it makes sense financially to do that. Some of these parks are cyclical. So like the one in Arizona we're talking about, that one has a downtime of about 6 months, maybe 7 months. Then it has 5 years where there are 5 months out of the year where it does really, really well. And it happens to be where the RV Jamboree is every January that draws 2 million RVers to this little town of 4,500 people, and the town goes nuts. And we know half of our revenue is in about a 6-week span. That's just the nature of it. So the challenge is on us to round out through, we're selling billboard space. We're selling propane and water and all the other services. We're looking at RV storage. How can we round that out so that our shoulder months and our summer months are stronger months? Advertise that we're open 365 days a year in a market where half the market closes. Advertise, shaded dog runs, things like that. Anything we can do to help those shoulder seasons are going to help us. We just know going into it, you really have to know how to manage your cash in so many situations. Any of these cons, of course, there's a flip side of that coin, and they can be used as a positive. Up north, what's happening is places that had typically closed, and say Minnesota had closed during the winter months, now they're putting these tiny cabins on them and then advertising them as snowmobile destinations. And now they take that dead asset and that piece of land, and maybe there's another 3 to 6 months that they can pull out of that from those cabins. So any of these cons, they can always be flipped down their ears. I love that. We talked about some of the other types of real estate and how it matches up. This is less predictive because it is really the hospitality industry. It's a niche in the hospitality industry, and you have to know your markets. And the other thing is that it's not as liquid as other assets because it's a smaller buying pool. It's not as liquid. So if this is a multifamily that's operating at a certain level, I put it out for the right. If I'm in a market of 6.5 caps and I put it out there at a 7 cap, I know it's going to sell in a month. This is not that, which, since they're a little harder to sell, we use that again to our advantage, because that means when it comes time to negotiate with a seller, we have more of an advantage because he doesn't have 10 me coming and knocking on his door. So when I ask for terms, he has to listen to, if he's looking to sell, he's a more open, more open candidates for sale. But like anything, you make your money on the way into the deal, not on the way out. So if you buy these right, there's a ton of meat on the bones. And a couple of potential cons, overproduction of RVs. I've heard about this, and is there too much? And I say, you can't build them fast enough for me, because even if somebody goes and they no longer are going to drive their RV, they just decide that it wasn't lifestyle for them, and a couple of years down the road, they're not going to take their $100,000 RV and drive it off a cliff. It's still going to go into a new buyer's hand who's going to get out there on the road with it. Same thing with some of the, if there is any, and I don't believe there will be, but if there is some overproduction at the big Thor and the Winnebago, the big manufacturers, if they overproduce, they'll sell them for a 10% discount, but they're still going to get there on the road, and they still have to go somewhere. And finally, the economy and fuel prices. A lot of people have asked me about these two. In the economy, at this time right now, there's a lot of unpredictability out there. And we know that people change their buying habits based on where the economy is going, and particularly fuel prices. And we look back at previous recession, and a couple of the markets that did really, really well in the tourism and hospitality industry, we know that regional amusement parks did really well, because mom and dad weren't going to spend $3,000 to take the family to Florida and go to Disney and Universal, but they would spend $1,000 to go spend a long weekend at a regional theme park. And those theme parks did unbelievably well. Same thing in the RV business. RVing is a very, very inexpensive way to see this beautiful United States of America, and people take advantage of it. But what I hear happening is people aren't, maybe instead of going to Yosemite for a couple of weeks, they're going to go to out by me to Utah. So maybe they have a 4-hour drive instead of a 12-hour drive to save on gas. Those types of things. But people, when they have that $100,000, $200,000 asset in their yard, they still want to use it. So all these negatives can all be flipped on their ear. It's unbelievable. And I think part of that is also going to answer the call for those weekenders, where they're going to take it and park it up at the lake and drive 2 hours and drive back, but not drive the RV for the rest of the time. But as an operator, I love that, because rather than having someone come and go, is the money there? Is the money not there? If I can rent it out by the season or by the month, I want that income, because I want that steady income stream. So that's really it. When Peggy asked me, she said, what are we going to talk about? Or I asked her, what are we going to talk about? She's like, we want to know what the RVers are up to. And what they're up to is they're looking for RV parks. It's just a supply and demand issue that's going on out there right now. And man, this is some real blue sky stuff. And I love it. I love getting into it. And as we go through, I know maybe not everybody on the call is going to jump out and go look for an RV park. But I hope I open some minds to start thinking about creativity within a niche. And there's niches out there. It's a question of what are you good at? What do you like to do? What are your gifts? What drives you? What motivates you? And be specific about it. I talked to some new people coming in. Okay, where are you going to focus? Multifamily. Okay, where in multifamily? Because there's not a whole lot of 48 and 96 units that are out there that are selling at a 9 cap that you don't have to lift a finger. That doesn't exist for the most part. But in multifamily, I have friends that do exclusively student housing or special needs housing, or multifamily can be Section 8 mobile homes. Or what's that niche? How you drive down, and when you start driving down into those niches and narrowing your market, that's when the profits just go through the roof.
So are we ready to go to Q&A?
Absolutely.
So cool. That's a really beautiful picture.
I'm curious. You had said that your focus is around $5 million and below for a park. Why is that? Is that a niche? So you're not competing against the large companies?
That's part of it, but it really comes down to financing, just where we are. We're babies in the industry when it comes to those types of properties. We are working on a development that is substantially large, but it's a multi-year development here that's just outside of Las Vegas. But we're finding out is if you keep it under 5 million, the cap rates are there. But the cap rates are there, and the opportunities, the arbitrage for turning the parks around is incredible. So if I'm looking for my sort of perfect deal, if you will, it's something that I can easily drive from home because I want to be able to visit it. It's something that's large enough that it will support it has enough income that it will support full-time on-site management to really maintain and manage the property, and then go treat that person right, that manager, and interview well and deliver SOPs and have them follow it, and you're uniformed, you're doing things right. And that's just an area that we feel under 5 million is still so blue sky for us. And frankly, where we are located in the desert here, there's not a lot of big parks. Like when you get down to South Carolina and Georgia and Florida, it's unbelievable how many massive parks there are that are 3,000-5,000 units, but that's not a West Coast thing yet.
Lakewood, Powerland.
Frank, could you stop wait a second. Could we stop the share, please, so we could all see each other? Thank you. And what's the SOP?
Standard operating procedure. So when you have in our case,
know what the initials meant.
Yep. So it's important to have a standard operating procedure so that when a rig comes in, we check you in, we lead you back to with a golf cart, we lead you back, help you find your site, help you set up, level your rig, those sorts of things, just all those little things that we do along the way because we want to deliver that incredible experience. Because hospitality, the business is all based on that repeat customer. And now more so than ever, because you have all the social media out there for doing reviews and ratings, boy, you want to nail it. And frankly, the RV park has been so ignored that bar is not real high, but we want to jump way over it so that when somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to this part of the country," oh, you have to stop at that elite RV place.
So, what's the typical cost for infrastructure per lot whenever you're building out?
You're looking, depending on where you are, what part of the country you are, you're looking around the $5,000 to $7,000 per lot type of number.
It's not real bad.
No.
Okay.
Okay, great. Jennifer, you have some questions?
Yes. I'm very interested in the RV business, RV park business. Just like you said that we have a piece of land in Northern California, very close by Larson National Park. So I was kind of thinking. Actually, I checked with the county, see if there's a possibility to develop a RV park or even the tiny house community. And so I'm doing some research, and then I think this is a very interesting topic that hit me. And then I'm glad that I'm here today. And so I kind of feel very excited. Maybe I can kind of discuss a little bit with Frank. I know that, he was so your current strategy is to buy the like the existing RV park, right? What about the development?
Yes, yes, that's for a couple of reasons. One, simply for the time to get to market is much faster if I can buy something that's up and operating. The Where I would recommend, especially in California, is start with maybe the local chamber of commerce to get a feel and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and they're pro-business. They're there to help the businesses, and ask them, have there been new RV parks come to town lately? Is that something is it a thing? And they may be able to give you some insight as far as the availability or the attitude of the local governing bodies, zoning boards and planning commissions, things like that, that really steer the development, just like anything else. But the development on these, it can be tricky because it's just a little different. It's just a little different, and a lot of communities aren't used to them. I've heard some horror stories in California, and I've heard some unbelievable home run stories in California. But the one thing that's consistent is you will be scrutinized. So do everything above board, by the book, include all the proper engineers and consultants, and just do things. California has rules on top of rules, and make sure you're following them. But when I look at those properties that are available for sale in California, oh my goodness, it's like there's the rest of the country, and then California is just totally its own economy. And I can't believe it's when I see prices that are 3-4x what they would be for a similar price or for a similar property in Oregon. It's just unbelievable what they can demand.
What about if you have the strategy to kind of work some type of a business model to work with some people who own the land, and maybe looking at the possibility of doing those, because for development, it seems like you guys are really experienced, right? And some people, maybe the ground lease or build to suit or something.
It's commercial real estate, so everything's negotiable and every deal is different. No, that's sort of the blanket answer. But when you're bringing a deal to the table, the most important thing is you have to get the land under contract. You have to have either you own the land, or you have a lease on the land, or some sort of rights to the land, or you're bringing that landowner on as a partner, and they're bringing that to the table. But if you have that, you're fortunate, because that's just that much less of the capital stack that you have to raise. And that's the land purchase is a very tough part of the capital stack, because land doesn't produce income on its own unless you do something with it. So if you already have the land, that's a big portion of the stack.
Yeah, I think we can. I think maybe I will call you back or contact you.
I'll do that introduction for you.
Sure.
That'd be a really great introduction. I have a couple questions, and then Nika has some questions. Just something that crossed my mind while you were talking about the cities are not approving. Is there not a bed tax that goes to the city?
It depends on the municipality, and everything's local specific. The other part that's local specific is how you categorize a tiny home or a park model cabin. We look at it like it's a hotel room, and it would have a hotel tax applied to it. Some municipalities say you can't build on there, but then they say, so then we ask, well, can we park a trailer there and charge for that? Oh yeah, you can do that. So it's funny. Different municipalities have different rules. If you have skirting on it or you don't have skirting on it, if you have wheels on it or you don't have wheels on it, all these sorts of things come into play. That's why you really have to do your homework with the municipalities when you're doing the tiny homes. On that, I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question was.
Is there a bed tax that goes to the city?
In most cases, there is a hotel tax.
Hotel tax,
Yeah.
That would be the same thing. And then you were
and
talking
that's passed through. That's just, we collect it and pass it through.
Sure, right. So the other was, you talked about the fast appreciation, but I know you were also talking about you could add some cabins. So once you add the cabins, then doesn't that now become a depreciable item, or is?
That's above my pay grade, that question right there. but I've heard stories both ways. I've heard of people taking that cabin and depreciating it just like it's a piece of farm equipment. Like it's
Right.
like it's a forklift or something like that. It's a piece of equipment. It's not a building that's affixed to the ground, so it can be depreciated quicker.
So as personal property. Or as equipment. I guess
I'm-
you would call it equipment, right? Because in this case it is.
Consult your CPA on that.
Well, I don't have one to, I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm just asking questions so the audience has some answers that they may not have thought to ask. So
Absolutely.
Nika, take it away.
Yeah, my first one was kind of about those cabins too, that I was like, how, if it's a cabin, would it be a fixed? And like, how does that change it? Because then it's actual real property is my thoughts with the cabin and stuff. I mean, the glamping and the yurt makes sense because you can just take it away, but the cabin part was a little like,
And most of those cabins are on wheels, so they
oh, they are on wheels
yeah,
too.
you
So
can
it's like
wheel them
another
in,
tiny
wheel them
house,
off, and it's so funny because it's all based on the state and local municipal code as to what it is, and they're all different. So you're like to do your homework on that. But I've heard some horror stories of people buying a piece of property and they're all excited, they're going to put this tiny home on it, and then they do, and then they find out that it breaks all these zoning rules, and then the municipality says you're toast, you can't do anything here. We're dealing with one municipality here, actually in Clark County, just outside of Las Vegas, and we're going to have to sit down with them and write some rules around these. The problem is with them is that if you call it a building, if you call it a dwelling, and it's under 400 square foot, by definition, it's no longer a dwelling. So what is it? So there's issues with zoning and all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
In Nevada, they actually passed a law this past year that any city over 100,000 inhabitants has to have a certain percentage of their zoning go to affordable housing, which then is allowing in these units that are 400, 600 square foot to be to basically circumvent the existing planning rules. So it's check with your local municipalities. It's wide open. It's so brand new, which is why it's so exciting. In some of these cases, we have to go help them write the rules.
Wow. Yeah. That led me to my next question. Like, you were saying about the park owned rentals, and it made me think of kind of how the mobile home parks work with I heard that if you do more, that you make it like a seller finance and someone owns it better than just renting it. For one, you make more money that way. How do you feel about that versus it being just a straight rental where someone might tear it up to where if you kind of created a note and sold it to them and then lease the land?
That's actually one model that we're starting to look at right now. If any of you has Hulu, write this movie down called Nomadland. It won some Academy Awards, I think, in 2019, and it's really about the baby boomer and post baby boomer generation that lost their nest egg and they're on a fixed income. What are they going to do? How are they going to live their lives? How are they going to find homes and make a community? And that's what that movie's all about. And it speaks to so much of this. It's so well done. It actually takes place. A lot of it takes place in just across the street from one of our parks that we have contract on. But that model, there's a life cycle of the typical RV owner, and that is their baby boomer age. They buy their RV in say the early 60s. They drive it for 8-10 years. And then now they still like the RV, still like the concept, but they don't want to just drive. So they'll park it someplace or in an area, maybe tool around that little area, but they'll kind of keep it there. And then in the winter, between the summer, they go back home. In the winter, they spend 3, 4, 5 months driving around maybe the Southwest, and then they'll park it in the same spot. The next logical place to go after that is, okay, Mr. Customer, you come and you leave your RV here for most of the year. How about an even lower maintenance bill by buying a park model cabin that's 400 to 600 square foot and you purchasing that from us, and then you pay lot rent. So it's basically like a mobile home deal, but you're right on pace there with what you said. If you can buy something for 80,000 and sell it for 100,000, there's a little bit of a pop there. And then if you can middle the financing on it, if you can borrow money at X and sell that money at Y to finance it, there's money to be made there. And then you have the lot rent, which may be say $300 a month to rent dirt. So there's definite income streams to be made in that scenario. And at the end of the day, somebody has a really nice community, a really nice home, small, but how much do you need for some people? And I think that that's going to take over. Like you look at Sun City outside of Phoenix, 30, 40 years ago, that was a dream in the middle of the desert. Now it's thousands of homes. Those were available for $40,000, $50,000 30 years ago. Now they're $500,000 homes, and people just keep getting priced out of those markets, and they're going to need something. And that's what I think long-term for my kids and their kids. I think that we can build a model that works long-term for some sustainable, smaller alternative housing.
Yeah, especially with the tiny houses. And then, yeah, my last question is, how do you find, are you getting your money back for the amenities? You know, just kind of speak to like, if you like that with if you built a golf, not course, because you said something about carts. I didn't know if that also meant you had a golf course, but in general, the amenities like the dog park or different kinds of amenities, and made it more of a community, even a pool or whatever that you had there, the cost and offsetting what your income is for that.
I'm a spreadsheet guy. So the current deal we're looking at right now, especially because it's cyclical, we had a 5-year pro forma and I blew it out to 62-month pro forma, because I want to know exactly where we are, when distributions are made, how much cash to reserve, all those sorts of things. But so for instance, your question is, how do you allot capital? How do you choose where capital should go? And in our case, I think our big capital cost is going to be to upgrade some utilities and get it off of the septic system, put it on city sewer, because at the busy times of the year, the septic system starts backing up. It's 180 units, but if I can only sell out 120, 140 of those units, but that's for a limited amount of time. That's only for 6 weeks out of the year. So that's what we have to collect some data right now, because we're gonna blow it out. We're gonna be at those high end numbers here this season and watch it and determine, okay, if I can get this many more units online versus the cost of doing that is that, okay, it's a 50% ROI. Yeah, let's go for it. Let's go do it. And other projects may fall off and may not be there. But when you start looking at, there's so many ways to make money without spending a lot of money on the marketing side. This product that we have is on the highway with 44,000 cars a day, and they literally have no sign on the highway. Literally have no sign on the highway. They have poles there where a sign was, and it blew away, and there's no sign on the highway. I'm like,
You gotta put holes in the sign so the air goes through.
I love it. Huge potential. So so that's what I'm looking for, is how can I do something really inexpensive that has the most bang for the buck, and then have a list that I review. Okay, this has the highest ROI, then this, and then keep reviewing that and learning and keep reviewing that.
Thanks. Let's Seema and then Cliff. Seema, you have a question.
Yeah. Are you looking for investors? Was the first one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Always. Yeah. Please talk to Peggy about that. Yes.
Okay, you're going through Peggy. Okay, yeah, because I'm looking for an excuse to go to Vegas. So if I can come look at it. Like somebody have a conference that I can go to Vegas, kind of thing. We have
the property that we have under contract is in Quartzsite, Arizona, which is about 3.5 hours south of Vegas.
That's okay, I can do that.
Okay.
We have a place, I have a place walking distance from where I'm in Florida, and it was a small mobile home park. And the guy bought it and turned it into tiny homes. But the only reason the city allowed it was that he put the tiny homes on wheels. So theoretically, they can be moved, even though they'll never be moved.
Right.
Because the city was not allowing tiny homes at that time. But because they are on wheels, I mean, it is doable. So like you said, Sarasota County, there are one city and 2 towns on it. So they all have different rules. I know, because I'm stuck in one of the towns with still haven't gotten a building permit after a year. So it's really cute, the tiny homes that they've done, so they bought out each trailer park guy, and it was a pretty shitty trailer park. There are still a few there that really look like, it's a trailer place, but they really made cute homes. And for people who say, check your CPA, talk to your CPA. I'd love to have a CPA who knows anything besides just doing the damn tax returns. Because I'm going to fire my second CPA by the end of this year.
Cliff's got a really good one for you, Seema.
No, I'm actually in a similar position because I'm looking for someone that knows specifically RV parks, the
know
CPA.
anything.
And I actually just got, it's so funny. I reached out to one that I wanted to work with and I got turned down because she only works with single individual owners. And if there's a partner involved or there's any sort of partnership money involved, she said that it just gets outside of her wheelhouse to do. And I was so disappointed because she knows so much about running a good profitable park. And then to add insult to injury, she has a YouTube channel, and I shot this email and we had a correspondence back and forth, and then she shot a YouTube video and it was out this morning saying specifically why she only works with individual investors and family investors. Is so funny. So yes, they are difficult to find. Absolutely.
So Cliff,
How many lots do you typically have per acre? And then when you're looking for raw land to develop, how many acres are you looking to typically purchase? I know that probably is dependent upon the market.
Yeah, on a per acre basis, usually you're in the 12 to 15 units per acre. That's also falls under your local municipal code. And on the large side, we're looking at a development outside Las Vegas that's 74 acres. That'll be 293 units. In which case, those on an average, those lots are 3,730 square foot thereabouts. So they're close to the size of a regular home lot. And some of those there, it's a very high end product. Some of those are a mix of, you can pull in your RV and it has a tiny home or two tiny homes there in it. And those products go all the way up to $1,200 a night.
And then your target price is between 30 and 40,000 per lot, or is it per acre?
Target price for land acquisition, it all depends. It really depends on where it's located. Location.
I just remember what you were saying earlier for where it actually makes sense.
Yes. And if you're looking just as sort of an average across the US, the average income for a well-run RV park is going to be about $45 per night per lot. And then you look at, okay, average occupancy is around 60%, and you grind through that. And a lot of this is just understand the rules of thumb. Good expense ratio is between 40 and 50%. A good earnings on a RV lot is about $2,000 per year. So just with a couple of major metrics, I can kind of back into and look at a scenario, look at a situation. And then we always give bonus points for, is there room to expand? Can I increase the business? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at their website, if they have one, and see if I can book a night there online. Because the stats on that, I just saw new stats on it just yesterday about how many people are booking online. It's just massive. You're talking over 2/3 of people are booking online. And if they're looking at an area and they go, oh, I want to book here, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and all that's there is a phone number, call us and or email us the days that you want to come in. Well, people don't do that. They don't have the patience for that. They're just going to go to the next spot and go book there. So just those little things. If I know that there's no web presence for an RV spot, but it looks like it's a good solid deal, that's just a big green flag for me. That's what I'm looking for.
And then, last question, and you probably addressed some of it in what you just stated, but what are some questions that an investor would want to ask and understand when they're evaluating investing in an RV park?
One thing is the cyclical nature of it and understanding what I'm coming in for, what I'm going out for. I want to know that if I'm investing, I want to know where the slow season is and how you're going to manage that. How are you going to make what bank covenants do you have in place? If I have a $1 million property, I may have a bank covenant where I have to keep $1 million in cash or cash type of assets. And then above that, if I have a slow season coming into it and I know that I have a $50,000 burn, well, that means that at the beginning of slow season, I'd better have $150,000 earmarked for that. And just really grinding through and understanding how this thing is going to operate throughout the seasons. The other side is just looking at what the upside potential is. You always look at the downside, obviously, and make sure that it's there, but you also want to give credit for what the upside is, because some of these there's a very typical story that somebody bought the land, couple did 30 years ago, and they've just loved it and met friends from all over the country and love it, love it, love it. And they just didn't want to be bothered with this internet thing, and never did online marketing, just word of mouth, and people just come every year, and they may be cash flowing because the property is paid for. They may be cash flowing $100,000 a year. Then they go to sell it, and say it sells at a 10 cap, it sells for $1 million. But through some good marketing and some sprucing up there, you may be able to double the revenue. That's not uncommon. So that's really where the arbitrage is. And you think, man, if they were, you just want to go, oh my goodness, you don't know what you're missing by not advertising on the internet. You don't know what you're missing. But their mindset is, it takes care of itself. We've had a manager in there for the last 10 years. The check just, every month we get an $8,000 check and we don't think twice about it. And they just have a very different worldview than you as a buyer coming in the scenario. That they don't, there's a lot of things that you could do in an RV park that aren't done. That leaves a lot of room for improvement.
Thank you. So we are already at the top of the hour. Ted has a question. Yes, Ted. You are still muted. Yes, Ted.
There we go. Trying to get the space bar to work here. How many locations did you say you had for parks?
We currently have one that's about to go under contract and one that's under contract. And then we've done some other partnerships on some, but as far as an ownership position with my partner, these are the first two that we're doing. And then we have, in the location we have in Arizona, we're looking to add about 3 or 4 more in that location.
And how do you organize your team to, let's say, to operate? Because you say it is a business, so that sounds like somebody's got to be on site to run it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you manage? How are you going to manage more than one?
The one that we're closing on it actually has a full-time manager. It's a couple, and then there's 2 part-time maintenance and landscape crew. So there's 4 employees there currently. I believe that with the right training and right SOPs, I think that we have a real good management couple there. But I'm always protecting my downside too. So we've actually identified somebody else that's currently operating a park there that we know fairly well through some mutual friends, that if we needed to, we have a backup for that. But that's a key question, because that individual that runs the day-to-day of that park is the whole thing. That's the nucleus of the whole park. That attitude, having the right attitude when somebody comes in, when somebody pulls in, how does the first 2 minutes of that experience go? That dictates their stay. And if it's a warm, friendly space and they say, oh, come on, follow me, I'll help you get set up, let's get going, versus it's over there. Totally different experience. So that's key. That's absolutely key, that individual. So by having those SOPs in place and monitoring and secret shopping and doing all the things that we need to do, we're gonna do that. But that's part of the model, is to buy parks that are large enough that it will financially support full-time staff.
Thank you.
Sounds
Anything
a little bit
else,
like
Ted?
you're headed toward franchise operation.
That is a potential. I mean, long term, what we're looking at in this part of the country is, I think that we could operate a dozen of these in the next 5 years, pretty comfortably. And then as a whole, now you have branding that goes across all these properties. You're sharing marketing. If one of them butts up to as an excellent location against BLM land or water or something like that, I can give access to all of those and they can share amenities. Just the economies of scale, marketing economies of scale with that is what we can do. And then you package all those 12, and then the bigger you go, the lower the cap rate, which means on an incremental scale, the higher the price, and then sell off to a larger concern one day.
Okay, so we're already at the top. Do you have another question, Ted?
Not now, but my information's in the chat if Frank would like to contact me.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. Please don't anybody leave. So thank you very much, Frank, for coming. What a great presentation. We loved it. And as you see, lots of interest So thank you very much for coming, Frank.
Thank you so much for having me and for the crew and the group here. And I love coming to this call and getting input and learning about other things. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this.